Okay, but real talk for a second. Has anyone else noticed that ChatGPT is kind of turning into like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of AI?
Ah, I see what you mean.
It's like every time you think you finally got a handle on things, bam, some new model drops, and suddenly there's, a whole new set of superpowers to figure out.
It's true. The AI landscape is definitely evolving at an incredible pace. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But just like you wouldn't use Iron Man's suit to bake a cake, you really need to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each ChatGPT model if you want to, unlock their full potential. And I guess that's what we're here to discuss today.
Exactly. And to help us navigate this brave new world, we've got Willy Seyama's latest articles. He's like the AI whisperer, breaking down all the latest and greatest in the Chat GPT universe. And we've even got like some insider intel straight from OpenAI themselves, which is always cool.
Right, and Siama's perspective is so valuable here because he's not just like a tech enthusiast. The guy actually runs a marketing productivity agency. So he's coming at this with a very practical mindset, like how can we use these tools to actually, get things done better and faster, which is what we all want, right?
Totally. So no abstract theorizing here, just straight to the good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, Seyama dives right into the big news. OpenAI just surprised us with a brand new model. Officially, it's called OpenAI O1, but I've been seeing everyone online calling it Strawberry. Catchy, right?
Yeah. It's definitely a bit more memorable than O1, I'll give you that. But fruit-themed nicknames aside, this is a big deal. OpenAI claims this new Strawberry model is their most powerful one yet, specifically designed for complex reasoning and accuracy. Think tasks like logic puzzles, data analysis, maybe even deciphering ancient texts.
This is probably not the best choice for whipping up a quick sonnet about my caffeine.
Well, hey, you could try, but based on the benchmarks, you're probably better off sticking with the tried and true GPT-4o for your creative endeavors for now.
Right.
And that brings us to a really important point. OpenAI didn't replace GPT-4o with Strawberry. They've actually given us options now, which can feel a little overwhelming, but bear with us.
Yeah. Options are good, right? It's just a matter of knowing which option is the right one for the job.
Exactly. So now, alongside the familiar GPT-4o, we have this new OpenAI O1 for when you absolutely need that next level logic and accuracy. But wait, there's more. Both of these models also come in mini versions.
Okay, so it's like choosing between like a gourmet coffee shop with all the bells and whistles or, your trusty instant coffee for those mornings when you just need a quick caffeine fix.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. These mini versions are all about speed and efficiency. They might not have all the horsepower of their full-size counterparts, but they'll get a lot of a lot of common tasks done without breaking the bank, or your patience for that matter.
I see. So it's less about one model being objectively better and more about choosing the right tool for the specific task at hand, right? And to help us do that, Seyama gives us this framework of 9 key capabilities to consider when we're making our selection. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Absolutely. He talks about things like safety and security, response speed, accuracy, how complex the tasks can be, even creativity and cost. Each one is important in its own right, but it's really fascinating how they all kind of relate to each other.
Right. And instead of just listing them all out, I figured maybe we could, dive into what these capabilities actually mean for us in the real world, in practical terms.
Okay.
For example, Seyama talks about safety and security, which seems kind of like a given, but it gets really interesting when you actually dig a little deeper.
Yeah, it really does. You see, the more complex a model's reasoning becomes, the less likely it is to be tricked into producing, harmful or biased outputs. So with its focus on, logic and reasoning, OpenAI O1 is scoring really, really high in the safety department. It's like having a very cautious and responsible assistant who double checks absolutely everything before they say or do anything.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm guessing this focus on safety might come with a bit of a trade-off, right?
You're catching on quickly. And that's a perfect segue to our next point. We'll be unpacking this trade-off and exploring the other capabilities right after this quick break. Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back, and I'm dying to hear about this trade-off you mentioned. Is it that old saying, slow and steady wins the race?
Well, it just might be, in this case at least. Remember how we were talking about OpenAI O1's focus on safety and complex reasoning? Well, it turns out all that careful thinking takes a bit of time.
Okay.
It's kind of like, comparing a quick Google search to spending an afternoon actually doing research at the library.
I can see where you're going with this, yeah.
Yeah.
Google gives you those like instant results, but the library, while definitely slower, might ultimately lead to, more insightful and in-depth information.
That's exactly it. And OpenAI actually released this really fascinating visual that really highlights this trade-off. They challenged a bunch of different ChatGPT models with the same problem, finding 5 countries with A as the third letter.
Okay, sounds simple enough. What happened?
Well, GPT-4o, our speedy friend, spits out the answer in like a lightning fast 3 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
But OpenAI o1, the careful thinker, takes its time, clocking in at a leisurely 32 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Now, that might not seem like a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, I guess.
But those extra seconds could really feel like an eternity if you're just staring at your screen waiting for some crucial piece of information.
Exactly. It all depends on your needs in that moment. If you're just, brainstorming some quick ideas or need a really simple answer on the fly, GPT-4 speed is pretty much unbeatable.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with something way more complex, like writing a really detailed financial report or analyzing, sensitive data, those extra seconds for OpenAI one's accuracy could be totally worth the wait.
Right. So it's all about picking the right tool for the job, as they say.
Yeah.
And speaking of picking the right tool, Seyama actually breaks down these capabilities in a really cool visual. It's like a ChatGPT radar chart, if you will.
Yeah. It is. Think of it like a cheat sheet for choosing your AI teammate. So you've got, each of those 9 capabilities all laid out, and each model is represented by a different line on the chart. And at a glance, you can immediately see which model excels in different areas.
Okay, so I'm picturing this radar chart in my head now.
Uh-huh.
What jumps out at you when you look at it? Any big surprises?
Well, one thing that immediately catches your eye is how OpenAI o1 excels in safety and security, which we already talked about a bit.
Right.
But interestingly enough, it scores a big fat 0 on multimodality right now.
Multimodality? Oh, yeah. Remind me what that means again.
Yeah, of course. So multimodality basically just means the ability to work with like different types of input and output. So think text, images, maybe even, audio or video in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So for now, OpenAI o1 is it's strictly a text-based model.
Ah, I see. Okay, so if I'm trying to, let's say, generate a funny meme with a cat, like wearing a hat or something, I'm probably sticking with good old GPT-4o for now.
For now, yeah, that's right. GPT-4 is still the reigning champ when it comes to creative tasks and handling images and stuff. But I have a feeling that OpenAI is working on bringing multimodality to Strawberry down the line. I mean, it just makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally. It seems like that Omni in o1 is like hinting at big things to come.
Right.
But speaking of creative tasks, the radar chart really highlights the difference between these models in that department, doesn't it?
It really does. GPT-4 still kind of takes the crown for, things like creative writing, brainstorming, really out-of-the-box ideas. But OpenAI o1, on the other hand, it's a bit, how do I put this? It's a bit more focused. You might even say, like, serious.
Oh, okay. Like that friend who's always ready to, like, help you solve some complex puzzle, but might not necessarily be the life of the party.
Yeah, exactly. OpenAI o1 is not really here to like crack jokes or tell stories. It's here to like analyze complex data, write really good code, and just push the boundaries of logical reasoning.
Right, which is incredibly valuable, of course, but maybe not what you need when you're looking for a creative spark or a good laugh.
Right.
This difference in personality, you could say, even extends to how much we can actually customize each model. Am I right?
You are. Seyama talks about this concept of user customization, which basically means like how much control we really have over the model's behavior and its responses. And right now, OpenAI o1 is a bit more take it or leave it.
Okay, so we can't really like give it super detailed instructions or set up like specific boundaries like we can with GPT-4o.
Exactly, yeah. And while that, that might seem a little limiting at first, it makes sense when you consider o1's power and its focus on safety.
Right. It's almost like OpenAI saying, okay, this model is so powerful we need to like make sure it's being used responsibly.
Exactly. They're essentially putting up like some guardrails until they're more confident in the model's ability to handle a wider range of prompts and instructions.
Right. Makes sense. So, okay, we've got the powerhouse that is OpenAI o1 and the multi-talented GPT-4o. But what about their mini-me counterparts? I'm curious about those little speed demons.
Of course. The mini versions are really fascinating in their own right. So they don't have all the bells and whistles of the full-size models, but they're incredibly efficient for certain tasks. And when it comes to pure speed, GPT-4o Mini is the undisputed champion.
I mean, is it like the difference between taking a quick trip in your friend's sports car versus like a leisurely drive in a luxury sedan? Like you'll get there eventually, but sometimes you just crave that need for speed.
That is a great analogy, but it's important to keep in mind that while speed is definitely exhilarating, it can sometimes come at the cost of accuracy or the ability to handle really complex tasks. Just like you wouldn't take that sports car on a rugged mountain road, GPT-4o Mini might not be the best choice for those really demanding tasks that require like super deep analysis.
That makes sense. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's maybe take a step back and kind of recap what we've learned so far. So we've got 4 main players in the ChatGPT game now, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
That's right. So I've got GPT-4o, the all-rounder, great for both creative and analytical tasks, and then it's faster, more efficient counterpart, GPT-4o Mini. And then we have OpenAI o1, the logical powerhouse designed for accuracy and really complex reasoning. And then there's its mini version, which is still in its early stages, but shows a lot of promise.
Yeah. And we can't forget about those nine key capabilities that Seyama outlines. Those are crucial for deciding which model is truly a right fit for your specific needs.
They really are. And remember that radar chart we talked about. That's your visual guide to really understanding how each model stacks up in those key areas.
It's like having a cheat sheet for the entire ChatGPT universe, basically. So with all that in mind, how do we actually apply this knowledge? How do we go beyond just understanding the theory and actually start using these tools effectively?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Right.
And the good news is that it's not as daunting as it might seem at first glance. The key is to start by thinking about your own AI use cases.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just, take a moment to really consider the tasks that you find yourself, turning to ChatGPT for most often. What are you hoping to achieve? Are you looking for creative inspiration or lightning fast responses or rock solid accuracy? It all depends.
I see what you're saying. It's like anything else. The more you understand your own needs and priorities, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right tool for the job. And luckily, with this expanded ChatGPT family, we have more options than ever before.
And more options means more opportunities to unlock the incredible power of AI, I guess.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away dreaming about the future, there's one more point I kind of want to circle back to.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that OpenAI o1 is still kind of in its early stages, and Seyama hinted at some really exciting developments sort of on the horizon. What can you tell us about that?
Yes. Seyama's final provocative thought, as he calls it, this is where things get really interesting. He talks about the rise of something called LLM aggregator.
Okay, I'll admit that sounds a little intimidating. What exactly is an LLM aggregator?
So imagine you have this personal shopper, but for AI models.
Like a concierge for all things ChatGPT.
That's a great way to put it. As these large language models, or LLMs as they're often called, as they become even more specialized and we have even more options to choose from, it's going to be increasingly difficult to keep up. That's where these aggregators really come in.
So instead of spending hours and hours researching every little detail about each model, like comparing radar charts and reading through all the technical specs,
Yeah.
I could just tell my AI assistant what I need, and it'll just point me in the right direction.
Exactly. That's the idea anyway.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But how realistic is this? Is this something that we can actually expect to see in the near future?
It's hard to say for sure. This technology is still very much in its early stages, but the potential is definitely there.
It's definitely a lot to wrap your head around. So before we dive even deeper into this brave new world of LLM aggregators, let's take a quick break and give our listeners a moment to process everything we've covered so far. We'll be right back. Okay, so we've journeyed through this whole landscape of different ChatGPT models, from like the creative GPT 4.0 to the more logical powerhouse, OpenAI o1. We even took a little peek into the future with this idea of like LLM aggregators, which I have to admit still sounds a bit like something out of like a sci-fi movie to me.
It does, doesn't it? But then again, a few years ago, who would have imagined having these, incredibly powerful AI tools at our fingertips? The pace of innovation in this field is just, it's mind-blowing.
It really is. But before we get too lost in all the possibilities of the future, let's maybe bring it back to the here and now for a second.
Okay, yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today. So what are the key takeaways you hope our listeners walk away with?
Well, I guess first and foremost, I just want them to feel, empowered. There's so much buzz around AI these days, and it's easy to feel like you need to be like a tech expert to even dip your toes in the water. But the reality is that these tools are, they're becoming increasingly accessible and user-friendly.
Absolutely. You don't need to be like a coding whiz or anything to start, experimenting with ChatGPT and discovering its potential.
Exactly. And that kind of leads me to my second takeaway. Don't be afraid to just experiment. Like, play around with the different models, test out those capabilities, see what works best for you. There's no one size fits all answer here. The more you explore, the more you'll discover how these tools can, enhance your creativity, your productivity, your problem solving abilities. The possibilities are really quite amazing.
It's like that old saying, the best way to learn is by doing.
Exactly, yeah. And who knows, you might even stumble upon like a groundbreaking new use case for ChatGPT that no one's even thought of before.
Right. The possibilities are truly kind of endless, which is exciting.
They are.
But as with, any powerful tool, it's important to use these models, responsibly and ethically as well.
Absolutely. It's crucial to be, mindful of potential biases, to double check the information that's being generated, and to just, use these tools in a way that aligns with our values.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the ever-evolving world of ChatGPT, just remember that, this is an ongoing conversation. The AI landscape is constantly evolving. There are sure to be even more exciting developments on the horizon.
Oh, absolutely. Stay curious, keep exploring, and who knows what amazing discoveries await.
And on that note, it's time for us to sign off. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the heart of AI. Until next time, everyone.